This is Dreamer. Dreamer is a sample-based contact instrument that provides a deep yet focused toolset for exploring and manipulating samples from the provided library or your own. It's also a powerful effects platform with the ability to chain and rearrange up to 6 world-class processing tools at a time. Today, we'll talk through Dreamer's core feature set and make a bit of music as we go. Before we get started, let's do some housekeeping. Dreamer runs in Native Instruments Contact Player, so you'll need to install that before Dreamer if you don't have it already. It's free. To start your session with Dreamer, open an instance of Contact in your DAW of choice, select Dreamer from Contact's instrument browser, and you're off. Dreamer's interface is broken out into 4 sections: the sample slots, the player window, the effects section, and status/global options. On Dreamer's left-hand side are 3 small triangles. The top 2 triangles toggle Dreamer's middle section between control view and waveform view. The bottom triangle toggles Dreamer's lower window between status mode and global options mode. Status mode displays the current sample and real-time information about any knob that is being turned at the moment. Global options mode allows access to several options that govern multiple things in Dreamer. We'll go through them all in a bit. Getting material into Dreamer is easy and intuitive. Grab a sound from your DAW's file browser or from any location on your computer, drag it over one of Dreamer's 8 sample slots, and release. By default, slot 1 is mapped to MIDI note C1. But we can change this in the Global Options section. More on that in a bit. The player window is where you'll spend most of your time when working with audio in Dreamer. There are 2 views in the player, and we can toggle between them with the uppermost triangles on the left. The first view gives us access to the player's parameters for working with our audio. The second view maximizes the waveform for more detailed inspection. Let's go back to the first view and talk about the player's controls. Key allows us to tell Dreamer what key our sample is in, which will be useful when we talk about transposition later on. If you don't need to transpose your sample, you can ignore this. The start parameter determines which part of the file Dreamer will begin playing audio from when a note is received. We can adjust this by turning the start knob or by clicking within the waveform itself. Volume envelope controls are on the bottom left. Dreamer has 3 play modes. Latch will begin playing upon receiving a note and will continue playing until we stop the transport of the DAW or change playback modes. Envelope will apply a 3-stage volume envelope. The stages are attack, hold, and decay. Sustain will apply an attack envelope, play the sound for as long as a note is being received, and then will fade to silence according to the release stage setting. The speed control changes the playback speed of the audio, everything from 2 times faster down into the granular range on the slow side. By default, speed is decoupled from pitch, but we can change that with the speed-pitch toggle. With this switch set to on, speed and pitch will be linked. When the speed-pitch toggle is off, Dreamer can repitch samples in 1 semitone increments, independent of playback speed. When speed is set to its lowest setting, Dreamer is in granular mode. The grains control is now active, which controls the speed of the grains from 100 down to 0. With grains at 0, playback will feel more or less real time. As this control is increased, Dreamer gets further and further into ooey gooey time-stretched goodness. Pro tip: combining long grain times, pitch transformation, and time-based effects is a quick way to take any sample into fun, experimental territory. One more thing about speed. Dreamer's overall playback speed is synced to the clock of the DAW. It's really good at adjusting to tempo changes, so feel free to experiment with dramatic changes in time while exploring. Reverse will play the sound in reverse from the start point defined by the start control. Lastly, volume and pan are definable per voice with the controls on the right. Dreamer ships with a stunning collection of effects, which are located right below the player window. A filter is always in slot number 1, and a limiter is always in slot number 8. There are 6 slots in the middle into which we can freely assign any of Dreamer's effects. To assign an effect to a slot, click the dashes below the knob, choose an effect, and explore the various parameters under the hood. Every effect offers macro control over a few select parameters, represented by an orange dot. Turning the macro knob clockwise will always increase the associated parameters, and likewise opposite. The relationship of these controls can be adjusted, and it's worth experimenting with for each effect. The small dot above each effect slot enables or disables each effect. To move an effect to any other slot, click and hold on its title. The word move will now be displayed. Then drag the effect to its new position. Now's a good time to mention that any parameter, whether here in the effects section or elsewhere, can be MIDI mapped to a controller by right-clicking, selecting Learn MIDI CC Automation, and then sending MIDI CC information from the knob, fader, or other device that you'd like to use to control the parameter. Placing things like start, speed, pitch, and several effects parameters under hands-on control is a ton of fun and opens up all kinds of performance possibilities. Your DAW's stock MIDI assignment workflow will also work as expected, so feel free to use the controllers and software tools that you're already used to using. There are 5 global options available at the bottom of Dreamer's UI. To get to these, click the small triangle to the left of this section in the interface. MIDI allows us to choose which MIDI notes will trigger which samples. Make sure the sample slot you want to change is selected, click MIDI, and then play the note you want to use. By default, Dreamer will snap its UI to the sample that is currently playing. Auto Select can turn this behavior on or off. If we have identified the key of our sample in the player window, the Transpose global option will adjust its pitch accordingly in order to play in tune. This can be very useful when using samples that are not in the same key as each other. Mono will put Dreamer into monophonic mode, meaning it will only play one voice at a time. Quantize will cause Dreamer to force incoming notes to play according to the grid setting selected. This can be very helpful when entering notes by playing live. So that's Dreamer. Plug in some sound, twist some knobs, and dream away.